What if the biggest reason you're not wealthy isn't your job, your income, or even the economy, but the way you think? Imagine two people earning the exact same salary. One ends up building wealth, owning property, traveling freely, and passing down assets to their children. The other struggles paycheck to paycheck, constantly stressed, always saving, but never getting ahead. What separates them isn't luck, it's mindset. In this video, you'll learn the truth about how the rich really think and how you can shift your thinking starting today. If you've ever felt like you're working harder but not getting richer, this will open your eyes. Let's begin. Wealth doesn't begin in your bank account, it begins in your beliefs. There's a silent difference between how the rich and the poor think about money. Poor thinking focuses on short-term pleasure, security, and appearances. Rich thinking focuses on long-term value, growth, and control. When someone with poor thinking gets a bonus, they ask, "What can I buy to reward myself?" When someone with rich thinking gets a bonus, they ask, "What can I acquire that will grow my wealth?" Here's a real-world example. Imagine two people, each receive $5,000. One spends it on a new phone, some clothes, and a weekend trip. The other uses it to buy stock in a strong company that's undervalued, or invests it as a down payment on a small rental property. Years later, one has memories and items that are worth less. The other has assets worth more. This isn't about being frugal. It's about thinking with intention. Wealthy people don't avoid spending. They spend strategically. Ask yourself, do you think like someone building value or someone chasing the illusion of wealth? Coming up next, the money in your wallet may not be what you think it is. Not all money is created equal. In fact, not all money is even real. There's a powerful principle called Gresham's Law. It says, bad money drives out good money. This means when fake money enters the system, real money disappears from circulation. Let's break it down. In 1964, U.S. coins like the Kennedy half-dollar were made of real silver. That half-dollar had intrinsic value. Today's coins? Mostly copper and nickel. They're worth less than the numbers printed on them. Same story with paper money. Decades ago, dollars were backed by gold. That meant you could exchange them for a fixed amount of precious metal. Since 1971, the dollar has been backed by nothing but belief. And what happens when governments print more and more of this unbacked money? Prices rise. Your purchasing power drops. Eggs, rent, gasoline, it all costs more, and your money buys less. That's inflation. It's the hidden tax on savers, and it's why the rich don't just save, they buy real money. Gold, silver, land, stocks, businesses, assets that can't be printed. Here's the test. If I offered you a shiny new $10 bill or an old silver coin, which would you choose? Most people choose the 10, but those who understand value choose the silver, because the silver holds real worth. The 10 loses it every year, and this is just the beginning. Inflation doesn't affect everyone the same way. To most people, it feels like life is just getting more expensive. But to the wealthy, inflation is an opportunity. Here's why. The rich own assets. Assets are things that go up in value over time, like real estate, stocks, gold, and businesses. When inflation rises, prices rise. That includes the price of homes, rent, land, and even shares of companies. So while the poor are paying more for groceries and gas, the rich are watching their property values climb. Even better, many of them use debt to buy those assets. But it's not reckless debt, it's strategic. Let's say someone buys a house with a fixed mortgage of $200,000. Over the years, as inflation rises, that house increases in value to $400,000 or more, but the debt stays the same. So the rich use cheap money to buy real things. The poor avoid debt, but miss the opportunity. Here's a simple real-world example. A modest duplex purchased for $150,000 in the early 2000s might now be worth $400,000. If it was bought using a fixed-rate loan, the monthly payments stayed the same, but rents went up, covering the mortgage and creating positive cash flow. That's how assets protect wealth. They grow while currency shrinks. And that's why saving money in a low-interest bank account is not building wealth. It's losing ground. Coming up next, why cheap thinking is more expensive than you realize. There's a common belief that being frugal is always smart. But frugality without strategy leads to poverty, not prosperity. People who think poor aim for low prices, not long-term value. They buy things that look expensive but aren't, because they want the image, not the impact. But here's the secret. Not all luxury is wasteful. Take watches, for example. Someone buys a gold Rolex for $50,000. On the surface, that seems like a reckless purchase. But if that watch contains real gold and is a rare model, it could double in value in a few years, especially during times of inflation. Now compare that to someone who buys a $500 designer watch with no intrinsic value. It looks good, but it depreciates the moment it's worn. The same principle applies to handbags, jewelry, even cars. Some luxury items are depreciating status symbols. Others are appreciating assets, if you know what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with looking good. The mistake is confusing cost with value. The rich understand this. They'd rather wear something that quietly gains value than something that loudly loses it. That's the difference between looking rich and being rich. Next, how your inner voice could be your biggest financial enemy or your greatest asset. Section 5. Mindfulness and financial intelligence. Wealth starts with awareness. Not awareness of market trends or stock prices, but awareness of your own thoughts. Every financial decision begins in your mind. What you say to yourself when you spend, save, or invest shapes your financial future. Poor thinking sounds like, I can't afford that. I'll never be rich. At least I got a good deal. Rich thinking sounds like, how can I afford that? What will this be worth in 10 years? How can I turn this expense into an investment? Mindfulness in money means asking the right questions. Instead of reacting to prices, you respond with strategy. Imagine two people lose their jobs. One panics, cuts spending, and retreats. The other sees it as a pivot point, starts a side hustle, learns high-demand skills, and reinvents their income. Both had the same problem, but only one had the mindset to turn loss into leverage. Your thoughts are the seeds of your financial results. Ask yourself, are you thinking like a creator of wealth or a consumer of comfort? Next, 3 critical money lessons no school ever taught you, but every wealthy person lives by. Section 6, 3 things school never taught you about money. Lesson 1, saving alone will never make you wealthy. Schools teach you to save money, but they rarely teach how money loses value over time. If inflation rises faster than your savings grow, you're falling behind without even knowing it. The wealthy don't just save. They invest in things that grow faster than inflation, like real estate, businesses, and precious metals. Lesson 2. Debt is not always bad. School teaches you to avoid debt, but wealthy people use good debt to acquire income-producing assets. For example, borrowing to buy a rental property that pays for itself is very different from credit card debt. Smart debt builds wealth. Dumb debt builds stress. Lesson 3. Your income doesn't matter as much as how you use it. 2 people making the same salary can live completely different financial lives. One uses every dollar to create more income. The other uses every dollar to create more lifestyle. Schools prepare you to earn, but they don't teach you how to grow. Real wealth is built with intention, not instruction. Schools prepare you to earn, but they don't teach you how to grow. Real wealth is built with intention, not instruction. Closing. Actionable lessons. Here are 3 principles to remember. 1. Think long-term. Every dollar you spend today is a vote for your future wealth or your future struggle. 2. Own assets, not just items. Assets create freedom, items create clutter. 3. Question your money beliefs. The most dangerous financial advice is the kind you never realized you were following. Before you make your next financial decision, ask, is this building value or just spending money? True wealth starts with how you think. Change your thinking and the results will follow.